After 20 years of marriage, Song Qingsha and I have always treated each other with the utmost respect and affection. Externally, he rose to the rank of minister, a position equivalent to that of a prime minister. At home, he was considerate and attentive, never taking a concubine, making him the kind of husband praised by all the neighbors. I always thought I was happy. I have a father who is a wealthy merchant with riches rivaling a nation, and a gentle husband who is devoted to me. Until the day he turned 40, he suddenly fell seriously ill and became unconscious. While feeding him medicine at night, I actually heard him murmur the name of the third princess of the current dynasty. I was struck as if by lightning, and accidentally knocked the medicine bowl onto his face. He lingered on his sickbed for another month, beyond the reach of any medicine. After his death, I left the city of Shengjing and traveled south of the Yangtze, drifting on painted boats at night. Listening to performers sing, as I listened, I fell asleep. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day before Song Qingsha's palace selection. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Father told me that Song Qingsha is an outstanding talent, and he is sure to shine brightly in tomorrow's palace selection. It would be wise to secure a marriage alliance and tie down such an ideal husband. Of course I knew. In his previous life, he was indeed the top scholar personally selected by the emperor, who praised him on the spot, saying, "A man of profound learning, reminiscent of Chancellor Wei." Chancellor Wei of the previous dynasty devoted himself to governance with diligence, leaving a lasting legacy in history. He was regarded as a good official in the hearts of both the monarch and the people. For the emperor to praise him by comparing him to Chancellor Wei was a genuine appreciation and a deliberate act of elevating his status. I have been married to Song Qingsha for about 20 years, and I know that tomorrow he will transform into the top scholar, and soon after, he will catch the eye of the famously beautiful third princess. In my previous life, since we were engaged first and he rejected the third princess's marriage proposal, I thought he had no one else in his heart. But now that I know Song Qingsha likes the third princess, as his kind-hearted and beautiful wife from the past life, I naturally have to let him have his way. When Song Qingsha was called to me by my father, I was cracking melon seeds. The sugar-fried pastries from our own shop are fragrant and crispy, paired with a pot of tea to cut the grease, utterly satisfying. After being the minister's wife for over a decade, I've held up this dignified facade for so long that I truly miss the days before I was married. I moistened my throat with a sip of tea and looked up to examine him. Dressed in moon-white robes, he had finely chiseled, handsome features, and especially those eyes, deep and cold as distant stars, were exceptionally striking. Even dressed simply, he carried an air of aloof nobility. In my past life, I took a liking to him at first sight, thinking this handsome scholar looked utterly captivating, and immediately agreed to the marriage. At that time, Song Qingsha showed neither joy nor sorrow, probably unaware that he would later find someone else to love. Master Song hails from Huaixiang, a place of clear waters and green mountains that nurtures beauties. Do you have someone you fancy? Song Qingsha was taken aback. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to be so direct. He remained silent for a moment, then lifted his gaze to look at me. His cold, star-like eyes, usually as still as spring water, now held a hint of a smile. Not yet. Having been married for 20 years in my past life, I know him all too well. If he says there was nothing, then there must have been nothing. So it seems his affection for the third princess must have developed after the palace selection. The most likely occasion would be that flower-viewing banquet. Oh, I leaned back in the bamboo chair, my whole body slouching loosely. Young Master Song, with your exceptional talent and brilliant literary skills, not to mention such handsome looks, will surely be worthy of the finest lady in the capital someday. As for me, I'm too fond of beauty. I suppose I wouldn't make a good wife, so let's just forget it. My father bristled with anger. Song Qingsha looked slightly stunned, as if full of confusion. I then stood up and left, quietly taking credit without seeking recognition. In the tower of the bright moon, upon the 10,000 flowers terrace, a beauty's song is worth 1,000 gold. Wei Kai raised his wrist to pluck the strings. Beneath his sleeve, the bones of his wrist protruded slightly, supporting a delicate and lustrous white. The crimson robe he wore made his brows and eyes appear bold and unrestrained. Today's palace selection has left the building quite deserted. I am the only one in the mood to listen to music. Noticing me resting my chin in my hand and watching him, the man slowed his strumming slightly. His long, narrow peach blossom eyes, gentle as spring water, lifted to meet my gaze. Miss Zhao, you actually have the heart to listen to me play the qin today. Wei Kai walked toward me and sat down unceremoniously in front of me. I heard that Boss Zhao intends to marry you off to that scholar. The scholar is taking the palace exam today, aren't you worried, miss? What's the rush for me? Whatever rank he gets has nothing to do with me. Wei Kai clearly didn't believe it, snorting lightly. A few days ago, you brought him to the building to listen to music. I saw you being quite attentive, making it seem as if he were the master. I was left speechless. You really know how to hit a sore spot. Song Qingsha has great ambitions in his heart, not something a mere mortal like me can get involved with. Wei Kai glanced at me. What, did he reject you? I am not the kind of person who would demand repayment for a favor, but Song Qingsha was someone who always repaid kindness. So, in my previous life, after he became the top scholar, he made me the honorable wife of the top scholar in a grand manner. Even marriage could be used by him to repay a favor. He often said that my father had shown him great kindness by recognizing his talent. Without my father, he wouldn't have been able to persist in the imperial examinations and achieve the title of Jie Yuan. Without becoming a provincial scholar, one naturally cannot become the top scholar. Thinking of that resilient figure, I found myself momentarily dazed. Having been married to me for 20 years, he treated me with respect and was considerate in every way. Perhaps it was his way of repaying a debt of gratitude. My father merely gave him money, yet he repaid it with 20 years of his life, even going so far as to reject someone he liked for this reason. What a poor little thing. A sour feeling welled up inside me. I have to admit I was really careless. The person I shared my life with, the one I treated with genuine sincerity, actually loved someone else, and I only found out before he died. Wow, he hid it so well. Wei Kai, noticing my low spirits, actually poured the wine for me himself. His wrist, pale as the bright moon, lifted slightly as he pressed the lid of the wine pot with his thumb and handed me the cup. I looked at him in surprise and teased, "Oh, so the renowned Master Wei, the celebrated Qin player of Shengjing, is serving someone wine for once." He shoved the wine cup into my hand, his eyes and brows showing a hint of sharpness. "Go drink your wine, you little ingrate." The sake that passed through the throat was Siki Haru, a famously expensive brew from the Bright Moon Pavilion. Each sip was akin to swallowing silver coins. "To serve me such an expensive wine, you've really gone all out." He didn't respond, silently pouring himself a cup instead. Tipping his head back, he drained it in one go, the lingering wine glistening faintly on his thin lips. When he looked at me again, Wei Kai's eyes held a heavy, complex emotion, too intricate to unravel. He asked me, "In Yangju City, did we truly meet only once?" In the spring of Yangju City, with pedestrians coming and going on Hongyaro Bridge, I once encountered a handsome flower seller. I have always had a soft spot for beautiful people, and I couldn't bear to see the spring chill harm him. So I bought his entire basket of peonies. He had an exceptionally handsome appearance, his beautiful peach blossom eyes slightly reddened by the wind. His lips trembled as he thanked me. The flower seller had an extremely fair complexion, with lips as red and moist as cherries, truly a sight to behold. That day, in high spirits and captivated by such beauty, I told him, "I am the eldest daughter of the Zhao household. Your flowers are lovely. Deliver them to the residents tomorrow." Early the next morning, I saw him again. He was dressed in thin clothing, holding out a basket of flowers to me. Before me was a basket of vibrant flowers, as if he had gathered the entire spring of Yangju City. On the petals, there are even dewdrops that have condensed. The flowers, whether deep or light in color, are arranged in a harmonious and varied pattern. The young man looked at me with a bright smile. "Miss, the flowers are very fresh today." As I got closer, I noticed red spots on his snow-white neck and the back of his hand, as if he had been bitten by insects. I gave him money to buy flowers and presented him with a jar of ointment. For just that, he was overwhelmed with gratitude. From then on, he often brought me flowers. We gradually grew closer, and I learned his name. His name was Wei Kai. Wei Kai was not originally a flower seller. He had studied under Master Ji of Yangju City, and his rendition of Crossing Jiangling was exceptionally beautiful. He handed me a basket of flowers, his coarse clothing making him seem a bit awkward, yet it couldn't hide his striking beauty. I stuffed a piece of candied fruit into my mouth and asked him, somewhat puzzled, "Mr. Ji is the most skilled Qin master in Yangju. As his disciple, you could also become a Qin master." Wei Kai nervously fidgeted with his ill-fitting clothes, his gaze awkward and uneasy. "After Mr. Ji passed away, the ordinary pleasure houses wouldn't hire me, saying I don't play well enough." How could that be? I heard him play the qin with my own ears. That year at the Yangju poetry gathering, he won all the praise with his piece Crossing Jiangling. even surpassing the verses the talented scholars had pondered over so deeply. How could he have fallen into such hardship by now? My gaze drifted downward, settling on his hands as they held the flower basket. A long, slender, and pale hand bore a scar that stretched across the palm, extending all the way to the wrist, so much so that even holding a flower basket made it tremble. I couldn't bear to see the once brilliant young man in such a sorry state, so I sought a physician to treat his hand, yet I never asked him how his hand had been injured. There are always times in life when things don't go as planned. No matter how impressive one may appear in public, it cannot stop those with ill intentions. The physician hired at great expense by the mansion truly had real skill. After just 3 days of acupuncture, his trembling hands stopped shaking. Wei Kai's face was full of pleasant surprise, and when he looked at me, his peach blossom eyes shone brilliantly, just like the big yellow dog raised in the courtyard. She is happy, and so am I. I never thought of getting anything in return. The Spring Breeze Tower in Yangju City was hiring a qin player. He played just one piece, and the owner decided to hire him on the spot. As a result, the other qin players who came after him didn't even get a chance to perform. The owner said that his appearance and qin skills were rare even in Yangju City, making him the top choice without a doubt. Indeed, I am not the only one who adores a beautiful woman. After that, he became increasingly busy, no longer working as a flower seller, no longer coming to bring me flowers. Wei Kai's reputation grew more and more prominent. So much so that the flower house, which had long seen few female visitors, now had many women spending lavishly to show their support. He was once renowned, becoming the most popular gentleman in Yangju City for a time. But heaven always seems to oppose perfection. During an elegant banquet outside a pavilion, a lady requested him to play the qin. Midway through the piece, the lady's son struck his head with a jar of wine, knocking him unconscious on the spot. As the night deepened, his servant hurriedly came to find me. The moment he saw me, he knelt down and begged me to save his master, the qin player. All the medical clinics in the city had closed for the night. I brought along the drowsy physician from the mansion and stepped into his somewhat secluded courtyard. He had lost a great deal of blood, his face was deathly pale, and his thin lips trembled unconsciously as he murmured my name, Aji. His voice was as faint as a wisp of breath. The next day he woke up. He remembered everyone around him clearly, but he just didn't remember me. His delicate brows slightly furrowed, and he looked at me with a hint of suspicion. You look somewhat familiar, miss. Have we met somewhere before? The physician told me that the wine jar had knocked him silly, leaving a blood clot in his head. Once the clot dissipates, perhaps he'll remember me. I couldn't care less about that. I was just indulging in the beauty, enjoying the visual pleasure. As for what lies beneath that pretty facade, what does it have to do with me? Once the business in Yangju was settled, I returned to Xingjing. 2 years have passed since I last saw Wei Kai, yet, I always see that face in my midnight dreams. Perhaps it's because there are so few people in the world as stunning as him. And I often sigh after waking from the dream, to think that such a beauty exists in this world, and what's even more infuriating is that such a beauty does not belong to me. Let me whisper something. If I ever become emperor one day, I might be even more fond of beautiful women than the current emperor. Seeing that I handled the business in Yangju City so well, my father confidently handed over several shops in Xingjing City for me to manage: the Moonlight Tower, Zhao's cloth business, and the Rouge shop. The cash flow is remarkably high. I've been so busy that I barely have time to catch my breath. It took a great deal of effort to review and verify all those accounts, dismissing those who needed to be let go and hiring new workers. It was relatively easy to recruit people for other positions. But finding a qin player for the Moonlit Pavilion proved to be a challenge. The Moonlit Pavilion is different from ordinary brothels. The ladies there are all pure entertainers, selling their talents rather than their bodies. The reason it is so highly regarded, aside from the fact that each of the ladies is exceptionally skilled, is also due to the presence of a handsome and elegant qin player. Unfortunately, this musician was taken a fancy to by the third princess and was recruited into her mansion as a court musician. It is said that he was paid 20 taels of silver per month, far exceeding the salary offered by the Bright Moon Pavilion. What's even more regrettable is that, unlike Yangju, there are very few in the capital who are both skilled in playing the qin and good-looking. But one day, the manager of the Bright Moon Pavilion came to the mansion to find me and excitedly said that an exceptional qin master had arrived. I wondered just how extraordinary it could be, and as I looked outside, I froze in place. No matter how much I racked my brain, I never would have imagined that Wei Kai, the one person who didn't remember me, was standing right in front of me at this very moment. Compared to that young man renowned in Yangju, at this moment, he more closely resembles the penniless flower seller of his past. Pitiful, he held an ancient chain in his arms, raised his peach blossom eyes shimmering with a faint light, and looked at me. Wei Kai's lips curved slightly, his eyes glimmering with a faint smile. I heard from the steward that Miss Zhao visited Yangju 2 years ago, seeing you today. It turns out we are old acquaintances. Wei Kai became the new musician at the Bright Moon Pavilion, because he was exceptionally handsome. The silver in the building piled higher and higher. Even my father kept praising me, saying, "Our Aji truly has a keen eye, she picked a god of wealth to bring home." I just smiled without saying a word. Wei Kai only remembers the first glimpse of me after I saved him, but his memory of selling flowers remains hazy. To this day, it remains so, just like now. Perhaps he remembered something and asked me if there were other stories. The spring wine of Shijing is rich and mellow, with a clear liquor. Holding the wine cup, I smiled and asked him in return, "Is what happened between us really that important?" Wei Kai paused for a moment, then nodded emphatically. "I can only recall that I seem to have given you flowers," I casually replied. "When I met you, you were an innocent and simple flower seller." Thinking of his nose and ears reddened by the wind back then, a wave of tenderness rose in my heart again. It's just a pity that Wei Kai is now an indifferent zither player, but not that heart-fluttering flower-selling boy. I tilted my head back and drained the cup of wine, accompanied by the priceless sound of the zither, and eventually fell into a deep sleep. When I woke again, it was from the heat. As soon as I opened my eyes, I found myself covered with a thick quilt, lying in an unfamiliar bed. After a long moment of daze, I propped myself up and emerged from the heavy quilt, and the warming pan on the bed rolled down with my movement. A loud clang jolted Wei Kai awake from his nap on the bench. Outside, the sky had darkened, and the lanterns of the moonlit tower had been extinguished. In the silence, our eyes met. His gaze was gentle as he smiled and asked, "Did the master rest well here today?" His usually cool voice now carried a hint of lingering warmth, interwoven with the moonlight. It felt unexpectedly gentle. Cloaked in the night, he rose and sat beside me, his cool fingers brushing away the fine sweat on my forehead. "The spring night is chilly. I was afraid you wouldn't sleep well, so I brought you a winter quilt." Though the candlelight in the room was dim, the person before me had a shimmering light swirling in his eyes, radiant and brilliant. I am trapped in the narrow world between the bed curtains, hearing only the increasingly intense beating of my own heart. Before waiting for a reply, Wei Kai spoke again. "Just now, while dozing, I had a dream. In the dream, you healed my hand, allowing me to become a true Qin master." Though startled awake, he was fully aware that it was not merely a dream. So real, it was originally a part of his own memory. The memory of the person before me, lost when my head was struck and broken. I looked at the faded scar on his hand, worn by the passage of time, now nothing more than the faintest trace. A slight flaw in the white jade, yet inexplicably alluring, especially when touched by the warm glow of candlelight, lingering at his fingertips, making even the breath feel heated. Fragments of the past flashed through my mind, and I saw Wei Kai, once the star of the poetry gathering, sharing a smile with the talented lady of Yangju, his beautiful eyes brimming with tenderness. My heartbeat seemed to falter, gradually settling into calm. A gifted scholar and a beautiful lady, a match made in heaven. They were perfect for each other. As if sensing my unease, Wei Kai lowered his head slightly, his soft lips so close they could almost brush my forehead. "Since the master said today he won't involve himself with Song Qing, does that mean he can involve himself with me?" His gaze burned intensely, so breathtakingly beautiful in that moment it was almost startling, yet I had not the slightest inclination to appreciate it. Raising my hand, I pushed him away and got off the bed directly. Freed from the weight of the heavy quilt, my mood lightened a little. The musician just woke up. His mind probably isn't clear yet. I won't take it seriously. A beauty only needs to be seen with the eyes. As for who truly holds his heart, or who he regards as his white moonlight, that should never have mattered to me. But today, I feel a little angry. I remember at the Yangju poetry gathering, your musical piece received countless cheers. And Miss Jiang's landscape poetry was equally impressive. You two are a perfect match, both talented and well-suited. I looked directly at him and said, "There's no need to abandon your former love out of gratitude." Wei Kai was taken aback for a moment. Then a faint, almost imperceptible smile crept onto the corners of his lips. "Is the boss jealous?" I responded with a broad smile. "How could that be? The world is never short of beauties. I helped you simply because your face pleased me. That's all there is to it." Wei Kai's smile instantly stiffened at the corners of his lips. Those eyes, usually clear and bright, gradually dimmed. Just like in the previous life, Song Qingxia achieved the top rank in the imperial examinations. Riding the spring breeze of success, his white horse trotted through the prosperous capital. In an instant, he transformed from a destitute and scholar into the most sought-after gentleman in the capital. When my father came looking for me, I was on the second floor of the rouge shop checking the accounts, the abacus beneath my fingers clattering away. Father lamented with deep regret. Qingxia achieved the top rank in the imperial examination and received high praise from His Majesty. He is now highly sought after. Not having settled the marriage back then now makes it seem as if our family is reaching beyond our station. I picked up the brush to correct the errors in the account book and casually replied, he is destined to become a high-ranking official. Having a merchant like me as his wife would only bring him trouble everywhere. Merchants are considered the lowest class. They are barred from taking the imperial exams and are often ostracized by noble women. Although it's just verbal, it still leaves a bitter taste in one's heart. To live this life again is more about fulfilling myself than it is about fulfilling Song Qingxia. I want to live a carefree and unrestrained life, to pass through a field of flowers without a single leaf touching me, without any attachments, free and easy. It's actually quite good. Seeing that I was in a good mood, my father tentatively asked, didn't you like him a lot before? You don't like him anymore? I replied. Just treat him as a connection. Father, the rest has nothing to do with us. I had just put down my pen when I looked up and saw Song Qingxia standing at the edge of the staircase. He was almost hidden in the darkness, his blue robe as cold and still as icy water, his expression indistinguishable. Only those deep, dark eyes stared at me without blinking, as if gazing at me through endless time. For a moment, I doubted whether I was seeing the aloof and elegant powerful minister Song Qingxia from a past life, not the young man who had just achieved the top rank in the imperial examinations. I don't know when my father left, leaving only me and Song Qingxia in a standoff, the atmosphere somewhat heavy, until he spoke, breaking the silence. Eiji, have you also returned? His voice sounded a bit strained, as if it took great effort to say it. I neither denied nor admitted it. What's the point of telling me all this now? Long before he fell gravely ill and called out another's name in his delirium, the last remnants of our past life marital bond had already vanished in the blink of an eye. I have never been a woman of forgiveness. I not only once loved Song Qingxia for his striking looks, but also hoped he would remain devoted to me alone, in his daily care and tenderness. I truly once hoped for mutual affection like an innocent young girl. Even if our beginning was because he was repaying a favor, but I clearly underestimated Song Qingxia's character. Even if he never used genuine feelings toward me, he could still be described as deeply affectionate and sincere. I don't blame him. In this relationship, he sacrificed his prime years, while I merely sacrificed some affection and love. To have misplaced my feelings is just that, like missing the bloom of an epiphyllum. Though regrettable, it's far from heartbreaking. To me, it's of little consequence. His expression didn't look too good. Perhaps it was because of my utterly indifferent attitude that a dark, inscrutable light flickered in the depths of his eyes. Song Qingxia suddenly strode forward, the hem of his robe rippling like a wave. He was completely unlike his usual cold and restrained self, his voice urgent. Eiji, we've been married for over 20 years. We were husband and wife in our past life. How can we act like strangers in this one? I closed the account book and looked at him leisurely. You were in love with the third princess, calling out her name even on your deathbed. Given a second chance, shouldn't you make up for that regret? Rather than being entangled with the past, it's better to find mutual affection and live a fulfilling life. Song Qingxia suddenly furrowed his brows, as if trying to discern how much truth there was in my words. Those dark, phoenix-like eyes were fixed intently on me, not straying for a moment. Who did you meet on the day of the palace selection? My uncle said you went to the Moonlight Pavilion and didn't return all night. The last 4 words were spoken through gritted teeth. But I found it quite amusing. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, looking at his handsome face, now dark with anger. All the resentment I had harbored in my past life, because his heart belonged to someone else, completely vanished. Song Qingxia, I sighed with a laugh, if you're already eating from the bowl, don't keep thinking about the pot, you'll choke to death. After I made my stance clear that day, Song Qingxia seemed to have grown a thicker skin. No matter how I sarcastically hinted for him to leave, he acted as if he didn't hear a thing. If he had no official business, he would inevitably follow me around. The top scholar had become the merchant's daughter's little follower. Thanks to Song Qingxia, for a time, I became even more famous than the celebrated top scholar's wife of my past life. The Zhao family's shops also became more popular than ever before, but this wasn't entirely a good thing. The legendary third princess had found me. The princess's residence sent an invitation, asking me to attend a flower-viewing banquet in 3 days. The handwriting was gentle and elegant, the same script I had seen in my past life. Suddenly, the faded memories of my previous life surged over me like a rising tide, engulfing me completely. This character. I had seen it in a book of policy discussions that Song Qingsha once favored the most. It was a carefully kept, secretly hidden note, with elegant and lively handwriting that bore a line of verse: fallen petals and flowing water. Spring has departed, when the swallows leave. The autumn wind and withered leaves even mimic longing. Back then, I asked where this note came from. Song Qingsha was stunned for a long moment, then a gentle smile bloomed on his face. I don't know where this note came from either. Perhaps a colleague scribbled it carelessly and slipped it into the wrong book. He spoke in a light tone, not seeming to feign. Such words make my teeth ache just reading them. My lady, please don't take it to heart. At that time, I was too naive to suspect anything. But looking back now, wasn't that precisely evidence of him concealing his true feelings? After recognizing the princess's handwriting, I found myself far more composed than I had imagined. Fortunately, in this second life, I no longer wish to have any emotional entanglement with Song Qing. He owes my family a debt of gratitude, and he can simply repay it properly in the future. There is nothing else on my mind. I accepted the invitation from the princess's residence and threw myself into the busy preparations. 3 days passed in a flash. After grooming myself properly, I was ready to attend the banquet at the princess's residence, but as soon as I stepped out of my own gate, I saw an extravagantly decorated carriage adorned with gold carvings and jade inlays parked in front. The attendant standing beside it cupped his hands in salute and said, "Miss Zhao, the noble one requests your presence in the carriage for a conversation." The exterior of the carriage was already luxurious beyond measure, but the interior was even more so dazzling it made one's head spin and stars appear before their eyes. However, the opulent interior paled in comparison to the radiance of the young lady seated within. Her features were strikingly beautiful, with a face as fair as snow, and eyes that shimmered like rippling water, seeming to speak and irresistibly draw one in. Today, she was dressed in full splendor, adorned with golden hairpins and pearls that covered her head. Exuding an aura of noble elegance, she cast a lazy glance at me and parted her crimson lips, asking, "Are you Zhao Eiji?" I bowed and replied, "Yes, your ladyship, it is I, a commoner." Seeing my proper manners and composed demeanor, she gave me an extra glance and casually gestured, "Take a seat." No need to be reserved. Having lived an extra lifetime, I recognized her at once as the youngest and most favored daughter of the current emperor and empress, and also Song Qingsha's beloved. Li Mingzhu, radiant and charming. The rumors were indeed true. At the height of her glory, with General Qin's recent victory repelling the covetous northern army, the third princess was spared from a political marriage. After establishing her own residence outside the palace, she hosted a grand flower-viewing banquet ostensibly to admire blossoms, but in truth, to observe people. Pearl is indeed at the perfect age, and it is time to choose a consort. In her previous life, she took a liking to Song Qingsha, who had just been named the top scholar, but he refused her on the grounds of a prior engagement. I wonder what she means by approaching me first in this life. However, I am determined not to follow the same path as my previous life, unchanging and predictable from start to finish. Li Mingzhu fiddled with the hairpin in her hair, her gaze falling on me. "I've heard that Miss Zhao is quite favored by Lord Song. What are your thoughts on him?" She appeared relaxed, as if asking casually, her red-painted nails resting against her temple like a peony in full bloom, noble and radiant. But I knew that the third princess must have feelings for Song Qingsha. Inviting me today was merely to sound me out. Sir Song is an outstanding talent, and his interactions with the Zhao family were only to repay a debt of gratitude. As for me, I have no feelings for him whatsoever, I answered truthfully. "Oh." Li Mingzhu looked at me with a meaningful smile. "It seems the rumors are nothing more than idle gossip not worth hearing. With your words, I am reassured." The flower-viewing banquet at the princess's estate was, without a doubt, a dazzling spectacle. At a single glance, the scene was overwhelming. The flowers themselves were intoxicating, let alone the array of handsome, elegant, and ethereally beautiful figures present. The love for beauty is universal. Even I, who had grown accustomed to stunning looks in my past life, couldn't help but marvel at the abundance of handsome men and the sheer delight they brought to the eyes. This place truly felt like a fairyland on earth. My seat was very close to the third princess. A maid from the princess's estate informed me that Her Highness wished for me to offer her some advice. But I knew that seeking counsel was just a pretense. The real intent was to reprimand. I had no prior connection with her, nor were we close confidants, so why would she seek my advice? I suspect the third princess has taken a liking to Song Qingsha and is using this to warn me not to cause trouble. Glancing around briefly, I noticed many familiar faces in the audience, all sitting upright with dignified expressions, eagerly gazing at the princess, hoping to win her favor. This made Song Qingsha, with his eyes slightly closed in the crowd, appear aloof and solitary, like a proud white crane, his gaze cold and detached, clearly no ordinary man, even after being reborn. I had to admit that with his talent and appearance, it was only natural for him to have won the princess's favor. He and the princess were indeed well matched. I lowered my gaze, only to hear the princess suddenly call out to me with a laugh, "I've heard that Song Lang and Aji are old acquaintances. What do you think of his character?" I replied with a smile. Song Lang is both talented and noble in character. I've heard he has long admired the princess. Why not let him showcase his abilities? As soon as the words left my mouth, Song Qingsha glanced at me. His eyes were very dark, a wave of bewilderment swirling in their depths, as if he were utterly perplexed. What was he so puzzled about? Is it that you don't understand how I could let him go so easily? Or is it that you don't understand how I, who once loved him to the extreme in my past life, could now let him go with such calm indifference? I did indeed love him once. He was naturally good-looking, and when his cool, clear eyes focused on someone, they seemed to hold a touch of genuine emotion. He treated me with gentleness and tolerance, so over time, I came to believe that we were a perfect match, made for each other, and that our feelings were mutual. I thought his heart was like mine, so I set aside my carefree nature, learned to manage household affairs, take charge of the family's finances, and become a thoughtful and understanding virtuous wife. Because of love, I gave up so many things. I always considered myself a carefree person, unwilling to be bound by anything. Yet in the end, it was this elusive word love that entangled me in a muddled life with him. Now, back in my youth, facing that still handsome face, I feel no ripple of emotion within. He composed a decent, though unremarkable, poem, but his calligraphy was so exquisite that the princess couldn't put it down and rewarded him with many gifts. No wonder he's the top scholar personally selected by the emperor. His calligraphy is truly exceptional. Receiving the praise, Song Qingsha slightly curved his lips, clearly pleased. "Your Highness flatters me." I watched with a faint smile, sipping tea and enjoying pastries as if completely detached. Yet Song Qingsha's gaze lingered on me, subtle but persistent from start to finish. Afraid I might jump out and ruin his chance to become the emperor's son-in-law, I lowered my gaze to avoid eye contact, but a string of pleasant zither notes flowed into my ears. The melody was familiar. I had heard it 1,000 times in Yangju City, the tune of Crossing the River to Ling. I looked up toward the zither player seated at the side of the stage, dressed in crow-black robes. He nearly blended into his surroundings. In that dim and shadowy corner, only his expressive eyes stood out. It was Wei Kai. I knew he had taken the day off from the moonlit pavilion, but I hadn't realized he'd come to the princess's estate for a side job. He really is diligent. As if sensing my gaze, his fingers continued to pluck the strings, yet his eyes turned toward me, the corners of his lips lifting slightly, vivid and radiant. Once the piece ended, Li Mingzhu was indeed drawn to look. And the moment she saw Wei Kai, her eyes revealed astonishment. "So this is the renowned zither master Wei from the Moonlight Pavilion. Truly, seeing once is better than hearing 100 times. He indeed possesses a rare and exceptional appearance, outshining everyone else here." As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings fell into silence, and the atmosphere grew somewhat tense. Everyone present held some degree of status, which was why they met the princess's criteria for selecting a spouse. They were usually quite proud of themselves, and being compared to a musician from a pleasure house left each of them with an unpleasant expression. Among them, Song Qingsha's expression was particularly grim. Wei Kai returned the greeting without showing the joy that comes after being praised. "Your Highness is too kind. I dare not accept such praise." Li Mingzhu turned her gaze toward me, the gold hairpin at her temple gleaming brightly, the corners of her lips lifted, and a look of determination flashed in her eyes. "I recall that the Moonlight Pavilion is a property of the Zhao family. I am fond of this musician. Could you part with him?" "Aji, naturally, I am reluctant to part with him. Wei Kai is the star performer of Mingyu Lu, with each of his performances worth a fortune. With him, Mingyu Lu's business can thrive without decline. If I were to let him go, the revenue of Mingyu Lu would drop by at least 20%. Merchants value profit and do not wish to see such a situation." But I cannot be ungrateful. Li Mingzhu is a princess, a ruler, and I am merely an ordinary merchant. I rose and bowed, saying, "It is his good fortune to have caught the princess's eye. However, this musician is not under my employ, he is merely hired by Mingyu Tower. If your highness wishes to engage him, you must ask him personally." The princess's gaze slowly fell upon Wei Kai, her beautiful eyes exuding an imposing nobility. "Wei Kai, would you be willing to enter my princess's residence and play the qin for me?" Wei Kai knelt on the ground, his jade-like face composed and calm. "Miss Zhao is a benefactor from my past. Without her, I would have lost my life long ago. I beg your highness to forgive my offense." Without waiting for her response, he bowed and kowtowed. "Oh," Li Mingzhu waved her hand dismissively. "Since you're unwilling, forget it. It seems as though I'm forcing you, playing the villain who breaks up a loving couple." Her meaningful gaze fell on Wei Kai and me. The implication was that Wei Kai and I had an illicit affair. There was no affair, though there might have been a hint of personal feelings once. But it's been so long, I can hardly remember. I have always been carefree. Whether a man loves me or not makes no difference to me. I only need to appreciate their beauty, and that is enough. At the flower viewing banquet, everyone had their own hidden thoughts. After being rejected by Wei Kai, the princess was clearly in a bad mood and lost interest in admiring the flowers. Halfway through the banquet, she excused herself to freshen up and left. To be honest, I think the princess is essentially the same as me, no other hobbies, just a fondness for good looks. Among the noble young men at today's banquet, all were quite handsome, but Song Qingsha was the best looking of them all. Yet for some reason, Wei Kai was invited to play the qin this time. His striking appearance made the others seem rather plain in comparison. After the banquet ended, Wei Kai got into my carriage. He sat across from me with such natural ease, as if this carriage were his own. As soon as he spoke, it was with a tone of grievance. Does the master's words today mean he doesn't care at all whether I stay or go? I remained utterly calm. When it comes to men, what need is there for sincerity? Having lived 2 lifetimes, I know all too well that what they love most are those who can bring them benefits. Or perhaps, regardless of gender, all people in the world are like this. Although I hired you at a high price, you are still your own person. Why should I interfere with your choices? Wei Kai bit his lip, as if speaking words buried deep in his heart, his tone urgent. What if I want you to interfere? I looked at him, as if seeing that flower-selling youth from Yangju City, in the past. I couldn't bear to let the spring chill harm him. Today, I find myself unable to speak words that hurt with reason. I cannot bring myself to harm a man of such beauty. I tapped my temple, my tone casual. What is this? Wei Lang, I've told you before, I don't need you to repay any favors. You've earned so much silver for me, the debt has long been settled. Sometimes I find it amusing. They all approach me, one after another, as if it's all to repay a favor. I know I'm a great benefactor. But there's no need to remind me all the time. But I heard him say, what if I told you I came to Xinjing City just to find you, not to repay a favor, to find me? I raised an eyebrow, looking for me, running out of silver to spend. After saying this, his expression shifted, his features growing anxious at my lack of cooperation. Yet the words that came out of his mouth remained gentle. I adore you, Aji. He looked at me earnestly, his eyes warm and tender. A faint light shimmering in their depths. Though it was not spring, the flowers of Yangju City seemed to be in bloom. That day, I did not respond to Wei Kai, not that I was unwilling, but I was interrupted by an unexpected guest. Song Qingsha stood outside the carriage, his face ashen, dressed in snow-white robes. The lingering glow of the sunset enveloped him, yet it could not dispel the cold aura around him. He looked at me as if a betrayed husband were gazing at a wife who had taken a lover. His eyes clear and cold. Zhao Ji, he called me by my full name for the first time. When did you become so close with him? His gaze remained unyielding, his words left unfinished, but I knew he still wanted to ask, did you two secretly connect even in a past life, behind my back? Not at all. I, Zhao Ji, am not a heartless person, nor do I wish to give others false hope. How could I be like that Song Lang, who on the surface treats me with respect, yet in his heart longs for the princess? How is it that this world tolerates a man's divided heart? But I know this cannot be changed. How difficult it is for a woman in this world to live as her true self. Before I could answer, Wei Kai lifted the carriage curtain, his picturesque features slowly unfolding. Yet filled entirely with provocation, the top scholar truly lives up to his reputation. No sooner has he attended the princess's flower-viewing banquet than he stops my employer's carriage. With such a divided heart, how can one deliberate well on court affairs or produce fine writings? I couldn't agree more. Seeing that I did not stop Wei Kai from speaking ill of him, Song Qingsha's expression grew increasingly somber, yet he did not leave in anger. Instead, he stared at me, his dark eyes sending a chill to the depths of one's heart. Aji, the past is like a dream, and bygones are bygones. Could we start over and mend our relationship? Start over and mend our relationship, easier said than done, but every time I think of him murmuring someone else's name on his sickbed, I feel utterly disgusted. I replied, if the old affection was false, how can there be any talk of reconciliation? The bronze mirror is shattered, beyond repair. Not long after that day, I retraced the path of my previous life and revisited Jiangnan. The performers from the Jiangnan water towns are skilled in opera. I chartered a painted boat for the night and hired the two most beautiful actors to sing for me. The melody was sorrowful and poignant, their voices soft and captivating, deeply moving. Beneath the white powder and rouge were a pair of strikingly similar, lovely faces. The twins had a tragic life story, evoking pity in anyone who heard it enough to soften even the hardest of hearts. One of them leaned against my leg, lifting a pair of beautiful eyes to look at me, their gaze shimmering with faint tears. If we could earn your compassion, my brother and I would surely serve you with the utmost care. There's no need to serve by my side. The Moonlight Pavilion is short of two handsome actors skilled in opera. If Wei Kai defects to the princess, we'll need new talents to keep the show going. Before I could respond, the sound of splashing water came from outside the painted boat, as if something had fallen into the water and was struggling. I walked over and saw a pale yet slender hand, marked with old scars. As he exerted force, the veins on the back of his hand bulged, and a head emerged. His usually smooth, jet-black hair clung tightly to his body. His face was blue from the cold, yet it couldn't conceal his striking beauty. I crouched down, grasped his hand, and pulled him up with all my strength. Wei Kai was soaked through, his clothes clinging to his body, his broad shoulders and narrow waist forming an elegant curve. I asked him, "Why are you here?" He stared at me intently, his gaze lingering on the twins behind me, his peach blossom eyes burning with jealousy. Flames 3 feet high. "Master," the drenched puppy's eyes were wet and glistening. "Don't leave me behind. The water of the spring river is so cold. Will you stay with me?" Fireworks burst into the sky behind him in an instant, grand and dazzling, yet everything seemed to fade into silence before Wei Kai. That youth, who had once captured a third of young Zhou's spring charm, now stood cloaked in the cold moonlight, pitifully begging me. I couldn't help but laugh at him. "If you knew it was cold, why did you jump into the water? Are you trying to catch a cold?" Wei Kai obediently shook his head, his tall frame trembling slightly as the wind blew. "If I don't jump, you might not want me anymore." How could that be? I redeemed the twin performers from bondage. I freed them from slavery, turning them into honest entertainers. The moonlit pavilion became even more popular because of the two of them. They mingled among the courtesans, teaching them to sing tunes during the day and performing on stage at the pavilion at night. The handsome yet unfamiliar twins truly became widely famous in the capital city of Shengjing. The princess's residents sent for them several times. They would go to perform in full and return early in full. Within 7 days, Li Mingzhu came to my door to see me, just like our first meeting, exuding an aura of nobility. "I don't understand, why are all those handsome men by your side so loyal to you, never leaving or abandoning you?" I knew that Li Mingzhu had sounded out the twins. If they entered the princess's residence, they would surely enjoy a lifetime of wealth and honor. The twins risked their lives to refuse. "Your Highness, you overstate it. They are not loyal to me. After finally escaping that man-eating den and gaining freedom, why would they enter the princess's mansion to serve with their looks? Then why? I'll just say this much. The bright moon tower gave them the opportunity to showcase their talents, and they are repaying the common girl's recognition and favor." Li Mingzhu laughed, beneath the layers of disguise and the gold and jade hairpins. She was still just a young girl who could cry and laugh. She praised me, saying, "You have good taste. Next time we meet someone remarkable, let me question them first." The young maiden's face was radiant as she made a joke. Perhaps they no longer wished to strive. Before the charming lady arrived, an imperial edict for marriage arrived first. General Qin, having achieved a great victory over the Northern Army, upon returning to the capital for rewards, did not seek gold or high titles, but only asked for a marriage arrangement, a marriage with the third princess, Li Mingzhu. When I heard the news, I was in the mansion counting on the abacus. The word had already spread far and wide. The emperor's grace was boundless, a hero matched with a beauty. I couldn't help but be stunned. In the previous life, the princess did not marry due to illness, but in this life, She has wed the young general who achieved success at an early age, in both lifetimes. Song Qingsha ultimately failed to fulfill his wish. Can't help but sigh. I heard that Li Mingzhu dismissed all her male favorites in the mansion and grandly married a prince consort. On the day of the lavish wedding, with the bride in phoenix crown and red robes, Song Qingsha drank himself into a stupor at the tavern, vomiting until the world turned dark. Look at him, saying he wants to reconcile with me, yet he still can't let go of the one in his heart, gain one thing only to lose another. It serves him right that he couldn't keep his true love. I made a wise decision by not repeating the same mistakes with him. I never expected that, just 7 days after the wedding, the third princess would summon me to her residence, claiming it was for tea and casual conversation. Seeing me arrive, she flashed a bright smile. Her complexion glowing clearly, she was very satisfied with her consort. Aji, she called me affectionately, as if regarding me as a close confidant. How have you been lately? Seeing my slight bewilderment, she lowered her voice considerably. You're also a reborn person, aren't you? Ever since you didn't get engaged to Song Qingsha, I knew you had been reborn too. In our previous life, he took the note I wrote to Qin Ju, causing me to miss a lifetime with General Qin. It's good that you didn't marry him. I was utterly shocked. This is completely different from what I had anticipated. In the previous life's flower viewing banquet, it was widely rumored that he rejected the princess for the sake of his fiancée. If the princess liked General Qin, why would such rumors spread? Li Mingzhu nodded. At the flower viewing banquet, I placed a handwritten note in the flower basket and had the maid deliver it to Qin Ju. The maid reported to me that Qin Ju refused it, so I gave up on that idea and, following my father's wishes, set my sights on Song Qingsha. He also declined due to his existing engagement. From then on, the top scholar's reputation for keeping promises and valuing gratitude spread through every street and alley, even reaching the ears of the emperor, who entrusted him with important responsibilities. Amidst the shock, I suddenly snapped back to reality. Only one possibility slowly took shape in my mind. Song Qingsha took the note that should have gone to Qin Ju and had the maid report to Li Mingzhu, so Li Mingzhu had no choice but to choose him. He once again used his engagement as an excuse to reject the princess, seeking wealth amidst danger. Both I and the princess were merely tools to boost his reputation. The ironclad proof of this conjecture was tucked inside a book I accidentally discovered in my past life, the handwritten note from the princess herself. I murmured, fallen petals and flowing water, spring has departed, when the swallows leave, autumn winds and withered leaves still mimic longing. Li Mingzhu looked up at me. How did you know? In my previous life, I saw that note in his book, so it wasn't that he repaid kindness with kindness, he was cold by nature, and would use any means necessary to keep climbing higher. Everyone was nothing but a stepping stone to him. Even without me and Li Mingzhu, Song Qingsha was still entrusted with important tasks. His official career flourished, and he rose rapidly. He soon became a close confidant of the emperor. He became engaged to the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Justice. I didn't want him to do well, yet I had to face reality. Only thinking about benefits like this, it's impossible to not live well. On the eve of his wedding, I was at the Moonlight Pavilion listening to the twins perform opera. The theater was packed, and my seat offered a clear view of everything. Just as I was completely engrossed, I saw a slender figure ascend to the second floor and take the empty seat beside me. Those pitch-black eyes stared fixedly at me, and in a hoarse voice, he said, "Aji, tomorrow, I will be getting married." I didn't stop cracking sunflower seeds. "Congratulations, Lord Song." His gaze was heavy, entirely fixed on me. "Marrying her is a temporary measure. Once everything stabilizes, I will take you as my equal wife. How about that?" What a thick-skinned man. Lord Song truly wants to have his cake and eat it too, craving both power and silver. I spat a melon seed shell at him. Since when does the world offer so many good things? My action didn't upset him. Instead, he spoke persuasively. "When the time comes, you'll be in charge of all matters in the residence. I didn't fail you in my past life, trust me in this one." "Alright," I let out a light laugh. "Do you know how you died in your past life?" He paused for a moment, then shook his head. "While you were lying sick in bed, calling out someone else's name, I got so angry that I poisoned you to help you pass more quickly. How about that? Thoughtful, isn't it? If you provoke me again, you might not live past 40. Song Qingsha looked astonished, and I pressed my advantage with a smile. "Guess if you'll call out the wrong name in your half-asleep days." I knew he was a man of deep thoughts, suspicious and overthinking, otherwise he wouldn't have died so young. In that case, why not add fuel to the fire? In the 7th year of Yongqing, November, Song Qingsha was thrown into prison by his father-in-law. It is said that he suffered from madness, waking from a nightmare in the middle of the night and strangling his sleeping wife beside him, when the rumor reached the Zhao residence. My father sighed and said, "Thank goodness I didn't force you to marry him back then. I thought he was an outstanding man, but it turns out he was a madman." Wei Kai chimed in. "Exactly, he never looked like a good person from the start." After speaking, he carefully observed my expression. "Eiji deserves better, better." I glanced at him with a light laugh. "Are you referring to yourself?" The spring in Shengjing had long passed. After several rounds of blossoms, deep green leaves had grown, welcoming the thick snow of winter. Wei Kai, not too late. I pity that flower I plucked in the city of Yangju in my youth, unable to bear the spring chill harming it. In the 3rd month of the 8th year of Yongqing, I brought it home to cherish.